marble and granite tiles. Really great material for a chess table. These pieces are a bit dusty and a little scratched up, and there's a note on each of them signifying their position. But before they were in this state, they were in fact a part of a table. This table we built years ago. It's traveled across the country and has been used to serve many meals on, and we've played many games of chess on it. But weather kind of destroyed it, although we saved the pieces. So this video will all be about making a whole new table. We've learned what not to do, and it's going to be a very different take on a chess table. I mean, I don't think I've seen anybody do it quite like this. Let's get into it. The previous table was for outdoor use. It spent years outside and for the most part held up well until the canopy that was protecting it broke and water finally got to it. When the idea of first remaking this table came up, we were going to make it for outdoors again. The previous table was made with a plywood base, and you might think, I mean, of course that would buckle over time. But we first pre-treated this plywood with this liquid waterproofing membrane, that's what the pink stuff is, which is what you use in bathrooms before putting tile down, etc. And according to research, I mean, that was a good option for a table base that would have tile on that would be placed outdoors. But, you know, water has a way of getting into pretty much anything. So this time around, plywood was out of the question. I was thinking that concrete would be cool. However, the problem with creating a concrete table to put down tile on would be the weight. But I started doing research on outdoor tile tables in general, you know, mosaic tables, that kind of thing, and found out that people often used cement backer board or even foam board as a base for their tile. And to me, that didn't seem like a very solid option and not great for long-term use. Then the idea of PVC came up. We have sheets of PVC in the shop that we've used for signs and other projects, and it's completely waterproof. The problem is it's pretty thin and kind of bendable, flexible, and also this table is, you know, relatively large. But you could double it up, right? You could epoxy two sheets together, making it stronger and less likely to bend. So that's what we did. We didn't have quite enough PVC for 2 full sheets here, so we're doing a little overlapping, trying to create a smooth, even layer of epoxy. And to clamp this in place as, you know, the section was drying, we added some plastic nails from the nail gun. The previous table was pretty large, and we had the square chess part on one side, and then we had some black granite tiles to the other side to make more of a rectangle. Although now we started thinking maybe we should make it square, and maybe we should make it for indoor use. Okay, 3 things about the previous table made me think it was better suited for outdoor use. First of all, the base. We still had the previous base, and first we were going to repair it and fix wherever it was broken, but it's still kind of rustic. Number 2, stone tiles are kind of sharp. The corners were sharp. 3, the whole table was kind of cold to the touch. Outdoors, I don't think that's an issue, but indoors, I like the idea of a warmer feeling. So, to solve these 3 issues, we have 2 solutions. Number 1, make a new base. And we're still working on this, but most likely it's going to be white oak. Might have some drawers for chess pieces. The legs might be round or they might be square, still debating on that one. And number 2, create a border around the tile using leather. This way you remove any sharp edges, and when you put your arms or your hands on the table, you'll be touching the leather and not the tile, and it will create this kind of warm and soft feeling. In many ways, these 2 changes will make this new table feel more like a classic game table, I think. Although not in this kind of super ornate classic way. Okay, so redesign. Remember, square shape instead of rectangle. Let's cut the glued up PVC board to a 33-inch square. The other thing, the leather border. Since we have access to a CNC machine, we're going to create an indentation inside the PVC piece where the tile will go. And this will make up for the difference in height once the leather goes on the edge. We're also accounting for a thin piece of plywood we're attaching on the border in between the PVC and the leather. So altogether, the CNC is carving out a 28 3/4 inch square, creating a lip around the edge for added support. Talking about plywood, we decided in order to add more rigidity to the whole thing, a bit more height to the top, why not glue on a 1/4 inch piece of Baltic birch plywood on the underside? Remember, we're no longer taking this outdoors, and we need something for the legs to attach to once we get to that stage. So, in order to connect the plywood to the PVC, we're using the same technique as connecting PVC to PVC. So first of all, washing the surface with some isopropyl alcohol, then mixing up some epoxy, adding an even thin layer across the whole piece, putting on the plywood, and securing with plastic nails while it's setting up. We're also cutting up some thinner pieces of plywood, and these will attach to the lip, the border, on the right side up of the piece, using the same method. And you know what, I think it really frames in this unit. Even at this point, it looks good. So sharp corners is something we want to avoid, right? And here we can simply cut them out with a jigsaw and make them slightly rounded. The jigsaw cuts through both layers of plywood and the PVC in the middle without any issues. And to make it extra smooth, rounding the edge with a router. And remember, this edge will be covered with leather, so it will curve smoothly now. Okay, so the board here now is ready for the main affair, securing the tile. However, we realized we don't have a trowel to put down the grout. So what do you do when you have a workshop and software? You design one and cut it out on the laser engraver. This was quicker and cheaper than running to the store. When you think about it, a trowel is really just a handle connected to a piece with lots of crenellations in different sizes. And plywood should hold up reasonably well, especially if you wash it after use. And yeah, the trowel is working great. Time to add the tile. So as you can see, we kept the first inner white marble border before the checkerboard pattern starts. And the youngest member of our team was in charge of putting in the spacers. And each individual tile was put back into the exact space it occupied in the old table. You know, this table was actually made because we had leftover marble and granite tile after putting down a diagonal checkerboard floor in our old kitchen. Those tiles though were 12-inch square, so these small squares were all cut out on the wet saw. Next step, the next day after the grout is dry, is removing the spacers and putting down the mortar. We went with black, just like last time. Annoyingly, we ran out of grout and didn't have quite enough. So I had to do the process twice, and honestly, it's mostly cleaning. The next day, the tabletop was a touch dark and hazy, and after cleaning it with a sponge, we realized the best way to really clean up the marble was to sand it with some fine grit paper to really get that gray color off, and that made a big difference. Okay, time to seal the tile. In the past, we've used traditional tile sealer, which I never thought really worked that great. We've used shellac, which works but really shows any brush marks as it dries. This time though, we're using beeswax. We're making a small amount of linseed oil beeswax polish, and this is what we sell in our shop. But obviously here it's warm, so combining the oil and the wax and spreading it out on the tile, using a heat gun to heat it back up again, and getting it really into the tile before wiping off. And the way it made the tile feel, I mean, it's really great. Very soft and kind of matte. I'd really recommend using wax polish as a stone tile sealer. And of course we'll see how often we'll have to reapply. But now we've come to the part that I think is really making this table stand out. The leather border. We're using some thin leather and cutting strips. Now what's tricky here is attaching it, making it look neat, doing the corners well. So we're using contact cement to attach the leather to the wood, and also removing any grout that's been stuck to the border, as well as in the little groove in between the tile and the wood. So to fill that little space, we've got some canvas here, cutting it up in strips. And this technique of filling that space this way is working out really well. And as always, when you used contact cement, you apply it on the leather as well as on the surface you are attaching it to, and then wait a while until tacky to the touch, and then you can connect the two. So basically here we're just gluing the sections on, not worrying about the corners. Then doing kind of like a miter cut on the leather in each corner where the two pieces meet up, and adding a little folded over strip. I was wondering if this was going to work, but it really cleaned up the corners and the strips are on there very well. You can't just pull them off or anything like that. So a little detail, which looks nice. And the chest top is more or less complete. Of course, it had to be tried right away with a game of chess. The leather border adds such a nice touch when you're sitting next to this table. It's soft to lean against. I really like that part. Of course, we also need a base and drawers for the chess pieces, etc. But we'll cover that later. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good one.